Shout out to our sponsors at Iconbet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. Iconbet, made by the players, for the players. Eye on Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon, the episode where we go around the ecosystem and bring you all the latest and greatest news. And with me, as always, is Icongrapher. How are you today? Long time no hear, man.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, good. At the moment, day job is killing me, and I look forward to these. They're just a nice break from reality.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what happened to me. I just got jammed up with a bunch of actual, real work, and I don't, I think people know this, but if in case not, I think it's about as difficult as possible between Fez and I scheduling these because we're literally on other sides of the world. So there's only so many hours where we can make it work. So sometimes it does get tricky, but do appreciate Brian taking my place. And as always, he definitely has way more knowledge on a large number of subjects than I do, especially on the technical side of things. So it's certainly nice to get that perspective and that insight injected every now and then, just to kind of talk through some subjects that I probably wouldn't be as comfortable talking through. I think his breakdown of the Icon 2.0 process, especially considering he's kind of the technical side of Rhizome in terms of the one responsible for operating the node and all that stuff. So to hear him play, kind of break that down, and everything like that was very informative. And obviously, as we'll get into it a little bit, it's actually starting to play out here pretty soon. So again, much appreciation to him for stepping in there.
Yep. No. We have a few go-tos, so that's good. That's good. But it's good to have you back. And well, let's dive right in, Icongrapher. Markets. Oh,
Yeah, well, it was
oh my
I think
terrible
I,
chart.
I think I was listening. You guys were obviously talking about price last week, and I think it was kind of the market was still a bit uncertain how things were looking, especially ICX when you recorded. But I think by the time I listened, I think it was like a few hours later when ICX really started to move a good amount, especially over the weekend. It was one of those things where you it would be stagnant, and then I'd go do something for an hour, then go check my phone, and it'd gone up from it'd gone up 15 cents or something like that, basically seemingly instantly, which always sometimes makes you nervous whenever you see something like that. But for the most part, it's been nice to see it hold. Obviously we had that little run up a day or two ago where it went up all the way up to like 255 or something,
Mm.
and then kind of snap back down to hit around 220. So that one's a little less sustainable. But again, as we've always been saying, it's way better to have, if it goes up, you kind of want it to come back down and develop a little bit of base of support. Otherwise, we saw what happens when that doesn't, take place, which was what happened basically in 2017, where it went from, like $1 to $13, and very quickly, never really established much support on the way up. And so when it came crashing down, it had nothing there to catch it until it got, way down to $2 or whatever, and then obviously continued to bleed out. So again, we all want to see significant gains overnight, every single day, forever and ever. But ultimately, that's not sustainable. So as long as we're still making up ground, we haven't really gone backwards in the last week or two, and obviously to see Bitcoin finally make a decision. I guess kind of two decisions, because it went, stuck in that low 40s zone for a little while,
Mm.
popped out of that, and then climbed pretty quickly. And then it sounds like there was kind of like another milestone about 52 or so. So obviously popped out of that just a few hours ago. So, we're dealing with the thing now where when Bitcoin moves that fast, the alts kind of freeze. Bitcoin dominance has been going up, but once Bitcoin consolidates and slows down a little bit and kind of hangs out, hopefully we'll start to see some profits flow into alts, because that's how these kind of cycles have played out historically. That's how it happened in earlier this year when Bitcoin was going way up and ICX wasn't moving and people were starting to freak out. It catches up eventually. Obviously, it didn't move as much as Bitcoin, I don't think, but it seems like we're on, whether you call it wave two of this cycle or something like that. I guess we still need to, wait a couple days just to make sure that the price isn't just a one day thing. But it does look like, everything we were seeing was pointing to something like this happen, especially if you're following the on-chain stuff, which I know Fez is,
Mm.
and just kind of the lot of the market setup. It cleared a couple key points the last couple weeks, in terms of that mid 40s and that low 50s range. So Bitcoin at least seems to be in good shape, and that usually sends good signs for the market as well. Even if ICX kind of actually went down since Bitcoin started making its run up. But again, that's just kind of how things happen for alts.
Yep. Yep. Usually in the full bull market, the BTC goes, everything else goes down. Um, if you've been watching my screen, I really should clear my charts, my terrible charts, before I show them off my watch list. I just start drawing random lines to see if I can notice anything abnormal. But yeah, BTC, I found this interesting today when I woke up. One of the quick takes, which I've got on the screen. So we've seen BTC explode, and it's saying that someone bought up $1.6 billion worth of BTC via market orders in just 5 minutes. Um, and
Which is
surprisingly,
interesting. Uh, it's the YOLO approach that many of us typically take when we open into positions. But I always thought if you had that much money, you'd phase into it a little bit slower than that.
yeah.
But I'm not. I guess I won't complain too much.
No, no, and it so happens they're saying it's more like a whale buying, but usually when we see stuff like this, it's almost like it's strategically planned to, coordinate liquidations and then have an impact in that way and keep. That's what happened last time when we got out of this price rut. It basically short squeezed and went crazy. But not this time. This whale just went berserk. Maybe found out some info none of us know and just went all in. But yeah, again, this is definitely not financial advice. So don't think of it like that. We're just talking about what we notice and see along the way. But interesting times. I think Icongrapher with ICX. Yes, I had the charts up before. It was we've had a pullback, and I keep coming back to this trend that everyone can see with my terrible lines. You can see we dropped off last week when we were recording. However, we've bounced right back up and above, so good sign. Just if we were keeping it extremely simple, trend is your friend, and yeah, let's hope. Look, lots of stuff happening. We've got Icon 2.0, which I know we're going to lead into, but just probably some housekeeping as well. Just stay tuned. We're planning part of Fine Icon, planning a bit of a launch party for Icon 2.0 with the foundation. So that should be a lot of fun. Get everyone on. If there's people you want to see on, even from the community, let us know, and it'll be quite entertaining. Well, I'm imagining it to be quite entertaining, Iconographer. I really hope it will be, but I know everyone in the foundation side as well are quite keen, and I don't mean just foundation. I think we'll get on quite a lot of the different P reps that are building. Hopefully they use that opportunity to drop some alpha and some stuff we don't know. I know Icon DAO, Parrot 9, all these guys have been hinting at projects. So let's see if we can get them to squeeze out some details on this night. in the excitement, because we're in this moment, let me tell you what we have
Yeah, if
planned.
we're ideally everyone gets drunk off the adrenaline and excitement of the launch and starts spilling some secrets.
Exactly, that's the game plan. So show your support. When you see this tweeted out and stuff, get in there in the comments and start saying who you want on the show. That'll be great. Okay. I kind of went sideways a little bit. We've covered the markets. Shall we dive into the news?
Absolutely.
Okay, what do we got?
So yeah, so I definitely say it's the biggest news, but also kind of the most unsurprising news to a certain extent. There's officially a proposal that has been put forward to migrate essentially to, or I guess, yeah, start the migration of Icon 2.0. So this is kind of a step that needs to happen just from a governance standpoint, just to make sure that everyone feels comfortable doing this. As I'm looking at it right now, we basically have on the for those who don't remember or forgot or whatever, uh, governance votes require there's kind of two phases to them or two categories. It needs to pass both on the number of actual voters needs to pass a certain threshold, and the actual the vote weighted needs to pass a certain threshold. So on the vote weighted side, it's unanimous. There's 217 million ICX that voted yes, zero voted no. On the PREP side, we have 14 PREPs who have voted yes, zero have voted no. We need one more to hit the 2/3 threshold that I believe we need to hit in order to become official. So there's a few P-reps that have not yet voted. So hopefully by the time you're listening to this, that has changed and this has passed. But and this basically kicks off the process that Brian described on last week's episode. So if you have not listened to that, definitely go back and listen to that. But as a refresher, basically there's 3 stages. Stage 1 is the database migration, which takes they're saying about 10 days, give or take. I think they initially said 2 weeks. Brian thought it might take a little bit shorter, so maybe they've adjusted in light of his comments, or not. And then there's the stage 2 where P-reps basically start kind of get the new nodes up and running for GoLoop and import the database that was generated in stage 1. They're saying about 2 to 4 days. And then stage 3 is activating Icon 2.0 on mainnet. And that's expected to last about 1 to 2 days. Again, there is some anticipated downtime to the chain that is likely going to happen as a result of this process. So just giving you a heads up now to prepare for that, whether if you're teetering on either your ohm or balance loans, as far as teetering on the very edge of riskiness, you might want to adjust that and be prepared just in case something if the chain's going down and things happen off chain, and when it turns back on and all of a sudden the oracles say the price is lower, because it might be, you don't want to be caught up in a risky position and get liquidated or things like that. So anyway, we'll get obviously much more warning and much more insight into this as it plays out. But all told, that's about a 2-week process. So, I don't know if it starts the instant the vote passes, but I think it'll be pretty soon after, because I don't think they would have proposed it unless it was pretty much ready to go. So, we're at October 6th today, at least where I'm at. And so we're looking, 2 weeks. So October 20th, somewhere around there, depending on, things going smoothly and all that other good stuff. So obviously very exciting times. It's nice to see this finally happen. There was also a update to the Icon GitHub page, basically with the kind of showing that this update was kind of on the way. I'm not, again, super technical, but that was another thing that was kind of highlighted throughout the community. And then also Min Kim tweeted out, as he tends to do, somewhat cryptically, but saying it's time to decentralize bridges. So obviously he's doing a little bit of teasing, a little bit of lead up. He's getting ready and excited on Twitter, at least. So another fun little thing to see. So you can kind of feel everything building around Icon 2.0. There's a lot of excitement growing. There's a lot of anticipation. Obviously, there's more kind of messaging and marketing and all that other good stuff that's happening. So we'll talk about this more later, but Brian from Rhizome wrote a pretty good kind of breakdown of Icon 2.0 and all the benefits that it brings. Some of this we've known for a little while, but some of it, he explains in a way that's a bit more understandable. I certainly learned a chunk from it. So we'll discuss that a little bit later in the episode, but just wanted to at least kind of give a preview of that. And then as far as, just BTP is concerned, we did get I guess, we hit a new month. So we have a new development roadmap from the foundation. First section of it basically talks about Icon 2.0, just mentions it's kind of right around the corner. I just kind of went through Icon 2.0, so I don't need to talk about that a whole lot. There is an update on BTP, basically kind of mentioning that we're getting closer and closer to some of these integrations and some of them being totally finalized. Near protocol basically most mainly, or I guess highlighted as being really close to the finish line. So that seems very, very close. And then I think the part that I took the most from this that I was encouraged by is the fact that, they mentioned they're still talking to several potential BTP partners, and they expect several more networks to join the BTP ecosystem. And I'm quoting from the Medium article here. One thing also worth mentioning is that we're starting to receive inquiries about BTP integration from other blockchains voluntarily. This is how we foresee the network should be run. We at Icon will architect BTP and build out the first iterations for the core modules. Future partners should be able to extend on this base architecture and code references to build their chain-specific situations. So 2 things here. A, it's obviously really good to see that other chains are starting to go, hey, we want some of that BTP too. And obviously there's awareness of it and it's clear that other chains recognize that they're going to benefit from it and want to be part of that system. So that's in itself encouraging. And then also, one of the things Scott's mentioned a couple times, and it's been potentially mentioned elsewhere, is essentially, e- each of these chains kind of runs on different code bases, different languages. So, Ethereum runs on Solidity, Solana runs on Rust, Icon 1.0 basically runs on Python. So there's different, you know, each chain that we're kind of building on has a different architecture underlying it, a different language it's coded in. But once we've built these initial iterations on these various chains, other chains that have similar languages and architectures, and there's only probably 5 or 6 core kind of development frameworks, languages, whatever you want to call it, that are floating around there. Once we've kind of built BTP on one of them, it gets a lot easier to build it on all the other ones that share similar. So when it comes to once we have integration with a Solidity based blockchain, it gets a lot easier to build out BTP on other Solidity based blockchains because we've already done it once and it's all customized and everything like that. It still requires some potential customization and things like that. But once we've got this kind of initial wave of integrations going, it gets a lot easier to further build things out. So very encouraging news from a BTP standpoint. And we also did get a little bit of note about ICE saying essentially that October will be busier from a communications perspective, and will likely include much anticipated information around the launch. We will share those details as soon as possible. So, we're a week into October. I haven't really seen ICE pick up a whole lot, but there's still plenty of time in the month. So hopefully any day now we'll start to get some more information, see some more activity, all that other good stuff. We still don't have an exact timeline on ICE, partly because I think we're waiting on Icon 2.0 to get finalized. But nonetheless, something else that should be exciting for this month for all iconists.
Yep, you covered a lot there. Had some thoughts back there.
Yes.
I forgot it. So well. But yeah, look, I think the only call out, I was trying to load a page. I particularly like this tweet around the foundation had put together steps of everything that's going to transpire. If you missed it, I noticed there was a duplicate tweet or one of these tweets and it didn't have a thread. I kept finding that when I went looking for it, even on the night it was tweeted out. But this is a great one. It literally breaks down every step for what's going to be happening and actions P-reps need to take and what's during the downtime, etc. So real good tweet and great to see the foundation really kicking that comms, and that's what you highlighted. You've picked up on it. I'm sure everyone has. Yes, it's overdue, and you know what? Credit where credit's due. Maybe it was overdue, but it's happening now, and we're seeing it constantly with everything. They're getting behind a lot of the content that everyone's pushing out. They're getting behind strategically updating what needs to be updated, and not just depending on those once a month technical updates and stuff that you were just talking about as well, Icongrapher, like the roadmaps. They still come out, but it's great to see the foundation tweeting a lot more information in different steps of the week, cycles that we're going through. And every week in crypto is like a year in traditional life, right? In age and everything else. So it's great to see they're using the medium a lot better as well. So that was just my pickup on everything that we're going through. But definitely excitement with Icon 2.0. We're finally there. I know we're waiting on this couple of P-reps to vote it in. I was surprised to see Reliant.
I was heckling them on Twitter. So I think part of it is some of them do have to sleep at certain points of the day. So
that's just it.
That probably explains part of it. So
yeah, and I was going to call. I know Reliant Node. Well, we know they're extremely active, right? So
yeah.
But when all this happened, it was pretty much close to sleep time. So they're probably woken up and going, "Oh crap." Yeah, cool. Okay, so I think that's great. Anything else on any of this Icongraph, or shall we move on to?
No, I think that's it. Didn't mean to go into a full stream. I kind of blacked out there just talking through it all, so I didn't,
oh no,
didn't
you
give
were
you
on
as much
fire.
time to chime in. But
no, I couldn't.
yeah.
I couldn't stop you, man. It was like you were just on a roll, and you were giving some great insights. Especially with some of the P-rep stuff. That was great. Cool. Okay. Well, let's jump on to balanced. I think. The only other thing. No, that's right. So this was one of the things I think when I talk about communication as well, like the foundation. You saw we did our overview with with Nia. If you haven't listened to it already, definitely go listen to it. Now, remember with these, it's not about on these podcasts, it won't be about, oh, well, what asset of yours can move across with BTP? No, it's not like that. It's more about reaching out to those builders and those ecosystems and just getting them to tell us what their chain and what's being built there. And then it's for us to connect those dots. So at times you hear me really kind of go, oh, this would be cool, this would be great. However, one of the moments I had post the interview and I tweeted about it was you can see near initial goal they were strategically trying to capture the gaming market, and they had spent a bit of time understanding where there was breakdowns in the processes when it came to blockchain gaming from a on-ramp perspective. So and they spent a lot of time creating aspects that removed, your traditional seed phrase and wallet and Web3 to interact with the gaming front. So for me, as I thought about it later on, I'm like, wow, Project Nebula, it's a natural evolution, and what BTP would enable there would be very interesting. And that said, I'm zoning in on the gaming section, but Nia had everything. It had DeFi. That's how they formed initially. They had guilds that just went in and focused on the different aspects the chain could be utilized for, and then DAOs started to form, and they kept building. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, definitely give it a listen. And give it a like. We've actually personally, I've seen reached out to the Near community, and they've even really gotten behind it and been tweeting it and sharing it and giving it a listen and commenting on it. So it's great to see, and that's the goal, right? Like, we keep talking about this communities. Icon, the community needs to grow out into other communities. It's not just about making everyone Iconists. It's about, now with the BTP chains, they're all technically Iconists, and we should be dabbling in those chains as well, because ultimately, just like with our DeFi, I personally believe it will be the community that drives that BTP component. So once we get these bridges, savvy community members are going to go, oh wow, there's all these yield opportunities all of a sudden through this BTP bridge. Let's capitalize on it. Naturally, we'll create some tutorials around it, not implying I'm the savvy community member, but I'll notice someone doing it, research it, create a tutorial, all of a sudden everyone follows, all of a sudden, we've got an expanded community by default. And that's the goal here. That's what I'm loving about these BTP sessions with other chains, learning about what they do, and then realizing, holy moly, soon we'll have a lot more opportunity. Because technically their dApps are our dApps now. That's what I say.
Yeah, well, I think these are helpful too, because one day they're going to flip the switch on BTP, and we're all going to look around and go, oh great, we can do all these other stuff now, and then we'll kind of go, wait, but we don't know what's out there to use it with. So it's good to get a little bit of sense of, hey, once BTP is up and running and the near integration is complete, here's some of the stuff that, if you want to move your ICX over or other assets over, here's some ways you can utilize the ecosystem and all that other good stuff, rather than having to people, scramble to kind of figure it out on their own. So that's certainly helpful as well.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so balanced. Oh, here we go. Now well onto the protocol news. What have we got first up?
So, it's almost, I think it's like basically every week now we get at least one new governance proposal. This one's a little familiar though. Basically a proposal to reduce the rebalancing threshold to 2.5%. Right now it's at 3%. It was at 5%, like a couple weeks ago, something like that. So it's, there was a sense that going from 5 to 3, it didn't, nobody's head exploded or anything like that, and everyone felt that it was, working pretty well. So figured, hey, let's try to ramp it up to 2.5. Obviously, the benefit is you get a closer peg, just so it makes BNUSD a bit more of a truly reliable stable coin. And so, there's some people saying, oh, let's just like make it 2 or 1 or something. But I do appreciate the incremental approach, just, bumping it up a little bit, making sure things still kind of function the way people expect them to. Nothing too dramatic happens with rebalancing or anything like that. So that's certainly nice to see. Last I checked, that was, passing by somewhere in the 90 percentile. So that was good to see.
There's a few rejections, but look, I agree that it needs to be slow. But ultimately, the coin needs to be stable. Even a 2.5 like percent is too much in my eyes. Like, so I get baffled when I see yeah, maybe some ARB opportunities disappear, but for this coin to get adopted, if it's not stable, it's not going anywhere. And Scott's even called this out many times. He's like, and that's ultimately the goal with BNUSD. He keeps saying we need to make sure it's stable before we start pushing it into exchanges and getting more adoption on it. So, yeah, great. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, and then the other one is a proposal to increase the Immunify bug bounty from 5,000 to 200,000. So this is obviously, not a small jump necessarily. And for those who don't know, Immunify is basically kind of a job board of certs of a certain type of basically saying, hey, if you're a good developer out there, come try to break our protocol, but from a white hat perspective. And if you find a bug here, we'll compensate you for doing that. It's basically a good way to kind of, obviously each team wants to do their own rigorous testing and everything like that. But even those who are working really hard, sometimes it's, bugs are really hard to find sometimes. So
Hmm.
kind of outsourcing some of the work, and especially if there's a really, critical vulnerability or bug or something like that, you want to incentivize people to find it. So, I think, we had, when we first started, there wasn't a DAO fund at all,
Hmm.
basically. And then there was a bit of one, and then the governance proposal basically trying to increase the funding for the DAO definitely helped. So it's I can't remember. I think it's over 1 million last
Yeah.
time we checked. Probably pretty good higher amount than that by now. So there's a bit more money available. So that's why I think it's such a significant jump,
But
because there's more resources available, and we've gone from zero to a pretty healthy DAO fund. So
yeah, and I think one thing, because I just was looking at this yesterday, and then I saw it just so happened on Telegram there was a lot of conversation around it, and reason for the jump is I think some on this site something in similar basket, which is synthetics, um, it does start from 200,000. So at the end of the day, why would someone look at our protocol that's only offering 5,000 for a critical bug
right.
when there's all these 200 plus $1,000 bounties? They're going to focus on that. So the goal is that we want someone to take the time to try and find a bug. We want them to discover it. So we have to make it more enticing, and that's the big reason why. Yes, it's a big jump. There is sufficient money in the DAO. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to find something. That's when it's rewarded. So as long as we get people looking, it's safer this way than someone randomly actually finding and draining all our users' funds on the protocol. That's the worst outcome we could hope for. So that's why these things exist, and this is why we have to make it appealing to the people to, try and hack it. Oh God, sometimes I wish I studied the right field. Um, but yes,
Hey, there's
lucrative.
always time.
Sorry?
There's always more time to you still have a chance.
Yes, true, true. I'm still young.
Plenty of ways to learn.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So those are the two ones. Great. The next thing we had was the roadmap update. Oh, there's quite a lot here. Um, so I've been thinking how to go through this. We'll just work through what's been done. I think this was a cool highlight, the balanced performance details. I've got it up in the next page so we can quickly take you through it. We also saw liquidity pools, so USDS and BNUSD got listed, so which is an interesting pair. That means BNUSD now is paired with every stable coin from memory, which is a good thing. But the only difference here is this pool isn't currently incentivized. That said, keep in mind there's still 0.15% of fees that those pairs get. So, and it's a stable coin, so you don't really have to worry about IL unless BNUSD loses its peg. But otherwise, it's great that there's options. We need, at the end of the day, for BNUSD to be more stable as well, it basically needs more, it needs to be used more. And the way it gets used more is by more protocols, more pairs, things like that. So it was great to see this get added. And we had the Craft SICX pair. Icongrapher, any 2 cents you want to share with that listing?
No, it's the big problem I always have with these in terms of so craft, we'll get into this a little bit later, but the craft token recently came out, and so there's a now there's a pool essentially if you want to stake craft against ICX. I think a few days ago it was up around like 1100% or something like that. And so I think I haven't checked recently, but I assume it's gone down. But nonetheless, they're rewarding essentially with the CFT token, which we'll get into that more. But just nice to see another pool on there, another chance to provide some liquidity, another chance to earn some yield unbalanced.
Yeah. Um, I Yeah, it was great. It's good. Kraft has launched their token. I'm hoping to see a lot more roadmap stuff from Kraft. I've actually asked in their Discord. I haven't gone back and checked. I need to, but
They did actually post something this morning. I haven't had a chance to look at
okay.
it yet, but they did post a bit of a roadmap. So we'll discuss that a bit more thoroughly on next week's episode.
Okay, great. Because I thought that happened as well. You know, Icongrapher. Sometimes I feel, where did I dream it, or it was one of those
Right,
moments, so
right,
I
right.
just didn't address it. Okay, great. Let's keep moving through some of this stuff. So we can see that there was a vulnerability for the DAO fund that could have caused issues tracking the DAO fund holdings. Okay, so let me really highlight that word tracking, which is great because Scott's in a lot of the community sessions, Scott has consistently said he wants to create like a financial report showing exactly what's transpiring with the DAO funds, and that's what this update has done. And the fact that they're even calling out this vulnerability is just showing how transparent they're trying to be with the community. Good things in my eyes. They also, this is a big one, really excited about this, pushed continuous balance rewards to testnet. And we've seen with Ohm what impact that has. And why I like these aspects, once this gets done, is we'll start to see our yield aggregator Optimus, for example, will be able to start utilizing these upgrades far better once we see newer strategies implemented. So, currently in Ohm, you have a liquidity pool giving you 200%, right? However, if we had a Optimus strategy that automatically, let's say every 10 blocks, took your rewards and sold it half and half and re-added it back into the LP, that 200% would straight away compound much higher. And this is what traditionally your vaults do across the other ecosystems, right? And that's what Optimus will do in our ecosystem as well. So but these updates is what make it possible. Otherwise, Optimus still can only do something with rewards once the rewards are processed, which currently is a snapshot style. So, great update. Glad it's on testnet. Can't wait to see it come to mainnet. And one of the things though called out was a lot of these updates that are on testnet, they'll stay on testnet now until Icon 2.0. Fair enough. We need to get that ship done before I said ship. Just for clarity, we have to get that done before we keep pushing out updates. At some point, stuff has to pause to get that upgrade done, and then we keep pushing forward. So there was the balance rewards. Then they have implemented transaction routing. Actually, I can't wait to test that out. So transaction routing is where you literally pick the pair you want, the pair you want to move to, and it will automatically transact through the pairs it needs to get you there, rather than you doing three separate swaps. But for clarity, 3 transactions still happen in the background. It just happens. It automates the process for you. So it is a good change. It will be a huge improvement from a user perspective, and if it reduces the amount of clicks you have to make, it's great. Good stuff in my eyes. And then a few others that you saw is this is exciting, multiple collateral types. So R&D, they're still working through that B-Balance implementation. If you remember, that's the one where you lock up balance and get more rewards, kind of like the curve model. And ongoing revision to the rebalancing process, which is great to see. And highlighted there is Icon 2.0 migration. They've clearly called that out. Anything you wanted to add there, Icongrapher?
Yeah, the kind of the tricky part with these reports is they're almost too thorough, and I say that in all a good way, just because there's a lot to cover here, and we haven't even gotten through the whole thing yet. So it's just if we want to do it, we basically require a whole episode. So definitely, we're pulling out the highlights, but definitely encourage you to go read the whole report if you can. And then just another thing I want to flag, kind of there's a bit of a section as far as the DAO funding is concerned. So it highlights the kind of the new funding proposal system where anyone can go in there and say, hey, kind of similar to increasing the bounty for the bug bounty. They can kind of go, hey, I think we should dedicate X number of dollars to do XYZ or whatever it might be. So that's kind of nice. And then also there's like this, under the stats page, there's performance details. It's kind of like kind of a financial statement for the DAO, so you can kind of see what the income is, how much it's bringing in, and then what the expenses have been as well. So I imagine this will get more thorough once kind of more expenditures are made, especially out of the DAO fund. But very transparent, very easy to read. You very much, it shows also the holdings as well. So just a very, very transparent, another well done user interface. So just a cool thing to see. And so much props to the balance team.
Yeah, huge. I just had that up now in case you'd missed it. If you recall, a few weeks back, I was so oblivious to the stats page in general, but the wealth of information on it is fantastic. And just backtracking, I really feel this DAO fund spending and performance details, like they've created a proposal type, right? And I've seen in the last couple of days a few things happening where members, there's everyone's, where's balance being listed? What's BNUSD doing? This starts to chip away at people. I get it. People want to see more adoption very quickly. What I like about this is rather than people venting or maybe even taking it a bit too far, it's a DAO, and people question, if it's a DAO, why can't we? Well, you can get on the forums, you can start the conversation and go, okay, we have this much in our DAO fund to get listed here. I've done the research. It could be, I don't know, let's say $25,000. Talk to the community about it. Do we think it's worth spending yet? Put something together in the forum, and then you can actually go for funding through it. But this is the important part. You don't just go and request for funding. You actually need to propose some discussions in the forums and get input from everyone. Get the feel of what from the broader community, that are we there yet? Are we there to keep pushing? So this is why I felt this was really important, because at the end of the day, this is what the DAO Fund's about, right? It is about the community putting something together and proposing spending of these funds, and they've enabled some of this functionality, which is fantastic and a really important part of this update that shouldn't be overlooked. So I encourage anyone, if you want to see something, rather than having a crack in different spaces of Telegram, actually structure a great forum post of what you want to see happen, and put a bit of research into what kind of costings are around this. Remember, it's not up to Scott and the team building balance to go and source everything constantly. No, they're focused on creating and pulling what's been done and executing, but the broader community involved token holders can actually give a lot more direction in these matters. So something to really keep in mind. I just wanted to say that because it is something I picked up in the last couple of days, banter on the different communication forums. So I'll stop there. I think that's detailed coverage of balanced. There's quite a lot there. Let's move on to Ohm.
Yeah, so I guess kind of the main. Actually, before we do that, I did have some breaking news. There was a additional vote cast in the proposal to migrate to Icon 2.0 by Icon Hyperconnect. So we're now above that two-thirds threshold for the yes side. So barring some crazy flow of votes against it in the next few hours here, it looks like it's all set to pass. So certainly good news, and nice to see that vote come through. I imagine we'll get more votes coming in too as more people wake up and stuff like that. But just wanted to point that out. I imagine by the time you're listening, you already knew this, but wanted to make sure we were as up to date as possible. But anyway, moving on to Ohm. So one of the debates, kind of discussions that's been going on in Ohm is how to handle the ICE airdrop. Just a reminder, the when it gets announced, when there's a snapshot or whatever, however they're going to play it out. For every one ICX you hold, you'll get one ICE token. So if you're holding it in your own wallet, It's pretty straightforward. If you've got 100 ICX, you'll get 100 ICE. Problem is on, a lot of people have their ICX plugged into these protocols, either balanced or ohm, and more specifically plugged in as staked ICX. Now for balanced, it's pretty straightforward because everyone has SICX either in a staking pool, locked up as or locked up as collateral, right? So um, it's pretty. You kind of can tell how much actual ICX people have, and so you can kind of redistribute the ICE that the SICX pool will get. However, in proportion to whatever people have. So that one's pretty straightforward from a just kind of a number standpoint. With Ohm, it's different because because you can both borrow and lend. Theoretically, you could deposit 1,000 SICX, and you could also borrow 500 SICX. So on paper, it looks like you have essentially 1,500 SICX. But the problem is this is the kind of the beauty, but also a bit of the downside of these money markets is essentially it kind of creates money from money, right? So you're essentially by borrowing it, you've created, quote unquote, created another 500 that can be put around in the Icon economy, which is good from an economic activity standpoint. But from a kind of accounting for the ICE airdrop standpoint, it makes things a little bit difficult to do because there's going to be potentially multiple people who have the same kind of claim on the same stack of SICX or ICX. So there have been a lot of discussions and kind of creative thoughts on how to address this. Recently, Ohm launched their forums, which are similar to the balanced ones, to kind of talk about governance proposals, that sort of stuff. And so, kind of the first major one, if not the first one, is basically kind of a discussion about solutions that have been, kind of I don't want to say the ideal, but at least kind of the most practical from an implementation standpoint and from I guess you could say, fairness standpoint. So there's basically kind of three. They're proposing a combination of the following three proposals. Basically, disable borrowing for SICX, so nobody can borrow it, and this would be temporary, just to coincide with the airdrop snapshot, just to make it so things are as easy to understand or as clear as possible in terms of assigning ICE. So that's number one is disable SICX borrow. Number two is to remove the OMM of rewards for SICX borrow, with the rewards being shifted to the supply side, and then also increase the borrow rates to 120% fixed interest rates per year. So there's a bit more kind of in depth about how they kind of see this, kind of playing out how they would implement it. If you're, concerned and have money in Ohm and you want that ICE, I would encourage you to go look at this governance proposal because there's a likelihood it will be formally put forth in the near future and voted on by Ohm holders. So if you hold Ohm and have a voice, this is something you're going to want to be aware of because if you are either supplying or borrowing, primarily supplying though, this will probably impact you. So I would definitely go take a look at that and kind of weigh in. Like I said, there's been 1,000 ideas kind of floated around how to handle this. A lot of them pretty complicated and potentially unworkable just both from a math, but also potentially from a coding standpoint in terms of how you would build it in. So
It's
this is kind of where they're currently at. There's been a lot of discussion on the Discord as well.
iconography. You mean the borrow side? So supplying is fine. You could still,
Yeah. I
yeah,
meant
yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool. No,
Yeah.
no. I
Yes.
thought for a moment. Look, yeah, I've seen a few fair people who listen to our show actually wanting a bit of a sessions around it to talk through. If you're listening to this, I think anyway, Arush has that organized via the monks. They're setting up, so there's no point us duplicating this. At the end of the day, it's great to just get attendance to one rather than trying to have multiple of the same thing and fight for attendance. So he has got a session in there via the monks in the Ohm Discord. I think today is tomorrow, and they'll be tackling this. My 2 cents. Yeah, I get it. I think it's great they're engaging the community and asking for input and giving options. Frankly, I've never seen this as part of a snapshot process happen in other chains. You just hear there's an airdrop and this is what you qualify. I mean, we got some DApps and things and yeah, it's been worked through. It's a good thing, but at the end of the day, whatever needs to happen, I get it. Just the lens side. Um, I don't know. I don't feel too torn about this. I know a lot of people are, and rightfully so. But personally, I'm happy to get I'm just happy to get some ice. In all honesty, I'm happy to get token for a completely new chain that is going to have everything built into it, and enable a whole lot of applications be built on it. And yeah, if I can't leverage more, if I can't use one of the dApps to leverage more of an airdrop, I'm happy with that. I can live with that. I won't get too greedy. But that's my personal view. Um, Anything else on this?
So what? Nope. I think that's pretty much. Again, go read it if you haven't already, and be sure to make your voice heard if you have concerns, questions, whatever it might be. Moving on to kind of some more, a bit more miscellaneous topics. As we alluded to earlier, the CFT token, especially gone live, tradable unbalanced. When it first came out, the chart said that one CFT was worth 25 million ICX. So that's the all-time high that we're shooting for on there. That's not really true. It's just the way that the liquidity pool kind of launched and the way the data got collected. That's just kind of how the math technically worked out. But I don't think there was anyone who actually sold one CFT for 25 million ICX. And if they did, then that's very, very good for them. But it did, it's when I first checked, it kind of was at like 0.016 SICX. It shot up at one point to I think like 0.05. So basically, it was about 10 cents per CFT. It kind of peaked around there and then dropped back down. I think right now it's like 4 or 5 cents, something like that, at least when I last checked. So, for those who were active on the platform from the early days, that's, it's not a crazy amount of money, but it is a nice amount. And it's something that, over the long term, obviously the team's going to be working on building out that platform. And once BTP comes along, I think we get really interested in that NFT, cross chain space. So, as we alluded to, there's a roadmap they did put out. We haven't had time to review it yet, but should be for the next week's episode, and we'll do some more discussion on that. But I would encourage, if you're a CFT holder and interested in the future of the platform, definitely be sure to check that out as well. And also, as we mentioned, if you want to provide liquidity and earn some more CFT, you can do that via the balanced pool that is CFT and then SICX as well. So,
yeah, and make sure just on that Icongrapher, you provide it. You need to go back to craft and stake your LP, just like Ohm. Don't forget.
Yes.
Anyway, back to you.
Yep. And then another point is Gangstabet launches on October 10th. So that's long anticipated. A lot of excitement around this. There had been some kind of back and forth regarding potential delays because the contracts getting accepted by the foundation and all that other good stuff. But it's nice to get a final date here. So that's about 4 days away, and I imagine those will sell out pretty well, just based on how much attention and focus and excitement there's been around that.
I think
Don't know if you have anything else to add on that topic.
Oh, I
Yes.
did actually. I wanted to on this, like, I've been excited about this. I think when I look at, for example, recently with Terra's upgrade in the Luna ecosystem, NFTs have become all the rage, and they've launched this Galactic Punks. Okay, it's to do with their ecosystem because all of the protocols are around stars and stuff. But this thing is all the rage. Okay, it literally minted for I think 10 Luna, and now their floor price is almost 100 Luna for the 10,000 something. And these are just literally pictures. These are like your crypto punks. Yeah, they have traits and whatnot. There's no token associated. There's no upgrade system. It's just how it gets minted. That's how it is. Now, when I look at Gangstabet from that perspective, it's such an evolution on the process in my eyes. So I really hope, like what has driven in the Luna and CryptoPunks, all these things, let's face facts here. The reason why they are so valuable is the community in those ecosystems have kind of gone, this this is what we care about, and then it's become this status thing. Well, if I hold this NFT, I have the rarest one, I have the best, and this is why it's held in value. This is why it keeps going up. New blood enters in the next cycle. All of a sudden, those CryptoPunks that were selling for 1 ETH have gone to ridiculous amounts because they're like, oh, I want to own that as well. And to me, this is what Gangstabet for our ecosystem, the Icon ecosystem, is like. It is an evolution of these. Of these NFTs that is gamified, animated, and kind of next level. So, yeah, just my 2 cents when I was thinking about it. I'm pumped. I need to make sure whatever hour in the night this launches for me, I'm there grabbing my registered Gangstabet. Anyway, let's keep moving. We got some big stuff.
Can you remind me? Can you remind me? Did they set a sale price yet for these?
Uh, for some reason, I'm thinking 80 ICX. Why have I got that in my head? The initial sale will be in ICX, but post that there will be stablecoin adoption as well, so you can have BNUSD, USDS, or USDC. But don't quote me on it. But for some reason, 80 is sticking in my brain.
Well, that's what all the Ethereum ones went for zero point zero 0.08 Ethereum. So the eight seems to be a key number in the
Yeah.
not all the Ethereum ones, but a lot of them went for 0.08. So,
Yeah.
and then just another kind of final topic to touch upon. Iconfi now supports the wrapping of ICX to an ERC20 version of ICX. So kind of it's ironic because ICX initially started as a ERC20 token, and then there was the token swap, and now we're kind of, I would say backwards, but at least kind of going full circle, I guess you could say. They partnered with the Icon Foundation to do this, so they're minting 50 million ERC20 ICX tokens, and it's fully collateralized by that same amount of ICX. So it's just it's collateralized, and so it's fully valid and everything like that. And so I'm reading from the announcement here. As part of this partnership, we will actively seek out more integrations with Ethereum-based DeFi projects and explore various synergies to expand the growth and adoption of ICX and IC ecosystems. We expect this offering to launch publicly in the next few days. Stay tuned for more announcements from Iconfi. And this was published on October 1st. So I haven't seen any specific updates just yet. They could be out there. I just might have caught them. But nonetheless, they're kind of getting a bit of a head start on BTP because this is something we kind of anticipate at some point in the future once there's an Ethereum bridge installed. But nonetheless, so they're getting a bit of a head start. So there should be, there's a good amount of ICX collateral that'll be floating around on Ethereum that you can utilize, hopefully on various Ethereum DeFi products. So certainly exciting, and kind of get an initial kind of taste of what BTP can look like, and kind of lays the groundwork a little bit too, because once ideally there's some potentially some Icon ICX staking pools or LP pools or whatever it might be floating around out there, that once BTP comes along, they're already kind of established and we can kind of plug in rather than kind of having to wait for them to set up. So very nice thing to do, and partnership to set up. So very exciting.
Yeah. Look, I actually have been doing some digging on this. You probably noticed this as soon as this announcement came out, and Icon was asking some questions around it. Overall, awesome. Love this. The fact that we putting a bit of liquidity on Ethereum is what's needed. The fact that it's going via Iconfi is a bit disappointing to me, because for us to move via the application means we have to be KYC. But that's my only gripe. So one of the things, I actually did speak to Scott about this in the background as well. And one thing he did remind me was, do remember that every bridge will have its own iteration of the token. So that was my concern, because essentially one of the questions I asked is Iconfi using Orbit Bridge to move it across, right? Because we know it will create a certain asset type via the bridge. And if they're moving 50 million across, great liquidity. Then any other user who moves more across, it's part of the same liquidity pool, if that makes sense. That was where I was coming from. So it appears, no, it's not. It's got its own unique way of the way they're doing it through Iconfi. And BTP will probably create its own version of the token that gets moved across to Ethereum as well. So apart from that, I think overall having ICX in the Ethereum DeFi ecosystem is a winner. You know, all of a sudden we've got people who love to just trade on Ethereum, stay on Ethereum, not have any risks associated with bridges, and they can purchase it via Uniswap, one of the biggest AMMs there is, surpassing Coinbase, well, most exchanges and trading volume now. So don't let my two views skew how important this is and how big of a piece this is. It's huge. I just kind of like to have all sides of, of the show to create that full picture of what it means and what are some of the implications. But overall, this is bullish. Great news.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was kind of before that pretty much does it for the news. Again, we missed a couple things, but we'll circle back around next week and address them. Did want to kind of talk through a couple things here. First is I guess we'll go in reverse order, but Brian Lee from the Rhizome team put out a pretty lengthy kind of overview of the articles titled "What Icon 2.0 Means for the Icon Ecosystem." Basically kind of walks through BTP, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So obviously that's a key feature, and as far as kind of how it compares with other interchain interoperability solutions floating out there. Also does a good kind of dive into Go Loop, and just kind of the advantages that Icon 2.0 is written in Go, which is a programming language that was developed by Google. Icon 1.0 is currently, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, written in Python. And so he's kind of from a bit of a technical standpoint walks through the various advantages that Go has over Python, primarily just kind of in terms of its speed and ability to kind of process different things. Python has a lot of bottlenecks in it. So this is stuff that kind of the everyday person like you or I who's using Icon probably won't notice, but for people who are building on it and for potentially for enterprises as well, it's an important kind of upgrade. And also the kind of the score architecture, which was the kind of the smart contract language that Icon 1.0 was built in. With that, right now you need a lot of you need approval basically for any contract you want to deploy to Icon from the foundation. Whereas with the new system, that won't be the case anymore. So it will be a lot easier to deploy contracts on Icon 2.0 that is on 1.0, especially just from a you don't need to sit around and wait for an approval. So that's certainly a nice upgrade. And then also just kind of talks about ICE and the EVM and EWASM compatibility and the advantages that can potentially bring. So I did a very much a skimming over this, but I would definitely encourage you all to read it just to get a better, with Icon 2.0 literally right around the corner, just a really helpful kind of breakdown and things like that. And then, going into BTP, this week I put out, I'd been doing, BTP is one of those things that I think people kind of get on the surface, but there's a lot of nuance to it that people weren't familiar with. I was seeing a lot of concern floating around out there that basically, there's Polkadot, there's Cosmos, there's Wormhole, there's Ren, basically, are we too far behind? Are these other solutions, they're already out there, Icon dropped the ball, whatever it is. And so I wanted to, basically I want to do a couple things with this piece. First of it was kind of describe a bit more in a non-technical sense how exactly the BTP contracts interface process works. So I tried to break it down in kind of an easier to understand fashion. Icon did this to a certain extent, and when they kind of initially they published an article kind of attempting to do this, and I think they did a pretty good job. But I still felt there was a better way of a kind of more practical way of explaining how it works, and I didn't get too many follow-up questions, so hopefully that kind of clicked for a lot of people. And I thought explaining this was important because it helped kind of break down. Helped set the context for why Icon's BTP was different than the other kind of interoperability solutions out there. And I guess the key way to summarize it is essentially there's basically say you have two chains, you have BSC and Icon. There's what's called a verifier contract on both sides of this, right? And so the verifier contract essentially when a transaction tries to get sent across the bridge in this case kind of being the relays that Icon has. There has to be a way to check that the transaction actually occurred on the original blockchain. So, for let's take Solana and Ren, for example. These are kind of the two. Solana's wormhole, it's their kind of bridge solution. These are referenced a lot as kind of primary, top of the line, most attention interchange solutions out there. And what the way they kind of work similar in the sense that you can plug them in between two chains. You can plug in Wormhole, you can plug in Ren, and a transaction happens on one chain trying to send to the other, and there has to be a mechanism to tell the chains, hey, this transaction happened on this chain. You can mint that token on your chain. And what Ren and Wormhole both do is essentially they have another layer of node operators to do this, right? So Icon has p-reps. They operate the nodes, which reach consensus, which verify the blocks, which make sure that the blockchain is accurate, immutable, all that other good stuff. It's really important, fundamental part of the blockchain technology. It's about it's how you decentralize things. So not only do you have that on the underlying chains, but you also, both Ren and Wormhole have another layer of nodes on Solana's Wormhole. They're called Guardians. On Ren, they're called Dark Nodes, essentially. And they're incentivized to make sure that they're being accurate. And if 2/3 reach consensus, then they say, if 2/3 look at the transaction on the first chain, say yes, it did happen, you can pass the funds over. Then it happens. Now, in the case of so this sounds good, right? But the problem is, or people would argue the problem is with Wormhole, the people who are doing this are selected by Solana itself. So there's there's not it's not entirely a decentralized democratic process. They're kind of handpicked to a certain extent. There are a good amount of them, and also so you're still requiring a third party to validate the transaction. Now, it's set up in a way where they're incentivized to do it correctly, and it requires 2/3 of them to do it. So it's certainly hard to game and for them to act maliciously. But and on the Ren side, it kind of works the same. What happens is people have to the node operators have to deposit 100,000 Ren, which I think is as I talk about it now, probably like $125,000. And if they try to basically act maliciously, that fund that they've deposited gets slashed. Now, again, that's a good incentive to act in the best interest of the network. The problem is if all of a sudden all the assets that are stored in the bridge, as far as cross chain are concerned, become worth a lot more than the deposit that they put down. All of a sudden, the incentives start to sway toward, hey, if we collude and steal this money, screw our deposit, because maybe each of us gets $1 million, and okay, we lose 100,000, but we each walk away with $1 million, right? So that's an easy kind of calculation to make. Now, again, certain things have to happen for that to occur, but the possibility is certainly out there. Now, the difference with Icon is that there is that kind of middle actor. They call them the relay. But in this case, all the relay can do is send the information along. It's not responsible for verifying whether that information is correct or not. There is a verifier contract on each side that is essentially able to look at the other chain, recreate the consensus, and say, yes, this transaction did happen. So in both cases, they're relying on the consensus of the chain that they're operating on. And so if you trust Icon, if you trust BSC, then you should trust that the bridge will operate in a way that there's no way for the smart contract to steal money. There's no way for the smart contract to collude, because it's a smart contract, right? Its incentives are what's written into it, and it's written in a way that makes sure that the only way it moves forward and tells the relayer or the relay to send a message is if the consensus was reached. So hopefully I explained that okay. The other comparison that floats around a lot is Polkadot and Cosmos, and without getting into too much detail, the key parts of these is essentially that they are both architectures, right? So BTP is out of the box. It's very easy to, once it's kind of built out, it's very easy to plug and play. You install, essentially have to basically just install this set of smart contracts on your chain, and with a little bit more configuring, you could essentially set up the bridge. With both Polkadot and Cosmos, they're both their own ecosystems, right? So chains that are built specifically within those ecosystems, utilizing the underlying frameworks, the underlying code, the underlying software, the underlying SDKs, all that other good stuff. They're able to operate, interoperable, but it's still kind of chained off in that own little world of theirs, right? And so, yeah, it's technically interoperable, but it's not as easy and it's not as outside the box of a product as BTP is. So it's limiting in that sense. Now that could change as time goes on, and they could find ways to kind of better integrate with chains outside their ecosystems. But at the end of the day, BTP doesn't care basically anything about your chain as long as it works. BTP can connect to it. Where with both Polkadot and Cosmos, there's certain requirements that have to get met by the underlying chains in order for them to connect, in order for them to become part of the ecosystem. So those are I did a pretty quick summary of it, but I think I hit the core points. I would definitely encourage you to read it if you haven't already. I was very pleased to see a lot of interest in it, a lot of excitement by it. I think it did help a lot of people to really understand both how BTP works and it's how it's unique within the crypto ecosystem and why it could be a potentially leading product. I also tried to kind of say like, look, it doesn't need to be quote unquote the best, both from it doesn't need to be number one in volume. It doesn't need to be number one in terms of the attention it gets. It just needs to do enough to where the tokenomics of BTP play out in a way that we need them to, where we get enough volume to where the auction system works out. And if you're not familiar with the auction system, we've discussed it on prior podcasts, but also I've linked to it and I've an article on that. So if you read the BTP piece, be sure to take a look at that if you're totally walking into this thing cold. So I mean, the ultimate thing is there's a lot to be excited with BTP. I think it's not the perfect solution because I think there's always going to be trade-offs with certain things. There's a lot of people who are going to want that Polkadot, ecosystem support and things like that, or whatever it might be. But I definitely think that BTP offers a number of advantages over other systems out there that a lot of chains are going to want to take advantage of. And as we alluded to earlier, it sounds like a lot of chains are starting to reach out voluntarily and say, hey, we really want to be part of this BTP ecosystem. So overall, definitely encourage you to read it. And really, I enjoyed writing it and kind of learning more on my own. Scott was also helpful in kind of explaining a few things to me. So his input is always appreciated as well. So if you haven't read it, I hope you do.
Definitely. While you have tried to explain it and done a really good job, I again come back to read it. Reading it does it justice in a way that it's so simple to understand. And even if you just don't understand BTP from the get-go, you'll read the article and it will make sense because there's such valid comparisons made. And, one of the things as you were describing it that really stood out to me is even through it all, you can only explain components of things. So exactly as you called out, you haven't in this article gone through the fee aspect and what that does. You haven't even zoned in on how once the chains are connected, basically the same concept, they talk to each other. And in the ending, the Icon chain is verifying exactly what's going on, but they don't have to, loop through one chain to get to the other. These aspects are missing in the article, rightfully so, because they don't need to be there. You've strictly focused on how this solution is different to what is currently we have seen in the market. So it's great. And you can even today, I think Chris, the guy who always, I've mentioned him a few times, he's in Ethereum. He really scrutinizes protocol security. He'd been on Polygon. He'd been hammering home about their fund and how many people have access to it and how it's not decentralized. And he just tweeted about Avalanche saying that their bridge is basically one wallet that's holding $3 billion or million dollars in funding, a billion probably.
That's another problem that's been pointed out is essentially, in some of these cases, the bridge essentially, it gets hooked up to a wallet and maybe it's multi-sig, but it's still, a very clear point of vulnerability for those bridges.
And we can see Scott's just come out and said this is exactly where the BTP solution is very different. There's no one entity, there's no wallet holding funds, etc. It's smart contract that then verified on chain through the way crypto works, right? So, yeah, great article, man. Really loved it. Enjoyed reading it. And Brian's article as well is brilliant. Definitely from two sides. It was great to get that component of it. But if BTP being the hot topic as well, yes, please, we'll have a link in the show notes. And if you haven't read it already, make sure you do. I think Icongrapher, that's it. We've covered everything. There was a fair bit of news. There's still a bit of news. Yes, we haven't gone through craft. We'll break it down next week. We may spend a bit more time on Brian's article as well, and give some of the insights there, because there's a lot in there as well. But if, as always, remember, not financial advice. Do your own research. We are not telling you to go and do anything. We're just trying to bring you the latest news and sharing our views on everything that's happening in the ecosystem. As always, please like, share, subscribe. I keep saying this. Your likes will help us, the show, Icon, get discovered. And all. If you're on the page, you just have to hit like.
I heard that Spotify added a review system to their podcast. So if you listen on Spotify, and that's available to you, please do that as well.
Please. We spend a lot of time getting this content out. That will go a long way. So really appreciate it. As always, thank you everyone for listening. Take care.